Episode 9 of the Glass of Joe podcast is here. For my partner, PJ Glasser, I am Joe Malfa. PJ, I am so excited about this one. This is honestly one of my favorite episodes that we've done so far. We have an incredible guest in Dan Orlovsky. First via phone guest, so that was new, but incredible guest in Dan Orlovsky. And it is our MLB season preview episode because, PJ, the four major sports are finally back. It's been 4 very long months, more than that actually, because it was March 12th that thing shut down. We haven't seen one of the 4 major sports since then, so over 4 months. But tonight, Yankees, Nationals start things off, and baseball is back. It's new, it's different, it's 60 games, but it is back, damn it. And next week, the NBA is back and the NHL is back. As we're speaking, the NBA is having their first scrimmages. I just saw Paul George pull up for a nice fadeaway against the Magic. I saw Bol, who everybody forgot about, dribble the length of the court and knock down a 3 at 7'2". PJ, I'm so excited, man. It's just,
I can see that, Joe. You seem pretty happy. Look, it's episode number 9. 9's my favorite number, so we had to come strong. We got a great guest. We got a lot of good conversation. So I'm excited. Like you said, baseball's back, hockey, NBA, they're on the horizon. Football, hopefully having that in the future in September. But man, it's good to have baseball back. I said it last week. We're a sports podcast who haven't had live sports to talk about except for golf,
we do
some soccer, and now we're finally getting.
And look, before we get into because this is the 2020 America in which we live, so you have to have the little asterisk disclaimer. We don't know that they're going to get through 60 games. We don't know that playing the season at all amid the circumstances is the right decision, but they're doing it, and we're going to evaluate it as we would if it were March 28th and we were getting set for real opening day. So that's the disclaimer. Don't know if they're going to get through it.
There's been some encouraging signs, though. The NHL had like 3 players test positive or whatever. The NBA had nobody.
None.
MLB have only had a handful. So the bubbles are definitely working.
MLB doesn't have one, though. They're traveling. That's why I say we don't know that we're going to get through 60. And again, don't know if it's the right decision, but it's the decision they made, and it's what we're going with.
Until they stop it, we're going to enjoy it, right?
Exactly. We've got our season preview on tap, ready to go. We'll start with the AL, and I'll save the time as far as giving all of our picks, me and you, and let's just uniformly say for the AL, seed 1 through 5, meaning the 3 division winners and the 2 wild cards. We agree on all of them.
Yep. You got the Orioles at the top too?
Yeah. No, so we agree on all of them. And we'll go through them now, but we do agree on all of them. So no dissenting opinions from us until we get to the postseason bracket. Then you and I differ a lot. But we'll start with the AL East. You're going to have a lot of people picking the Rays, but you and I both, we go with the Yankees.
Yeah, we do. And I mean, there's not a lot not to like with the Yankees. As long as they stay pretty injury-free, they, can avoid the big injuries where guys are out for an extended period of time. There's just so much talent on that team. Their bullpen, nobody challenges their bullpen.
Nobody challenges their bullpen or their lineup.
Their lineup's loaded too. The question will be maybe their starting pitching after Cole. Tanaka's just so up and down. You really don't know what you're going to get from him, especially in the playoffs. And then who's their number 3 guy? Probably James Paxton. But
you got Luis Severino.
If he can stay healthy.
Last year, he came in late because of the Tommy John, and now we haven't really heard much about him.
So again, because the season is shortened and you can go to Garrett Cole probably every 4th game if they wanted to, you can save that bullpen a lot for the postseason. And the games that Cole isn't pitching in, if Tanaka, Paxton, Severino, Happ, whoever it is, can give you 4 or 5 innings, they just turn it over to their bullpen. They're going to win a lot of games. The lineup, Judge, Stanton, Torres, they're loaded. But
the problem is, like you said, the health is the issue.
The health.
Because you've got seemingly every year for the last couple of years, even when he was with the Marlins, Giancarlo Stanton gets a random groin or oblique pull that sidelines him for 3 weeks. Judge has had issues with his lat, his shoulder,
Sanchez
his neck.
too, their catcher.
Sanchez gets hurt. Gleyber Torres has been kind of like the main guy they've relied on, but Andujar, who they're going to rely on now, coming off of a season that he just missed. The list goes on as far as guys who have nursed injuries. DJ LeMahieu was just getting over testing positive for the virus. So you have all these guys, and as we've named all those names, you can see just how loaded their lineup is.
Mayhew was their best player last year. I mean, he was in
Incredible.
consideration for
MVP consideration.
and you list all those names, and he's probably the fifth guy you think of.
Yeah,
So
exactly. So there's a ton of talent. The Yankees and the Dodgers are on this collision course.
yeah,
But because of the injuries, because of the holes in their starting rotation beyond Cole, I'd say that of the two, the Yankees and the Dodgers, the Yankees also being in a tougher American League, I'd say they're the team that is more likely to falter. But
I would agree.
Sky's the limit for them. I mean, forget it. If you got all those guys in the rotation clicking beyond Cole, if the batting order stays healthy, considering that it's a 60-game season, forget it. I mean, there's no touching them. And something that we talked about off the air, though, and not just for the Yankees, but for teams in general, is in a 162-game season, you're cool with having a player take a day off if he's got some minor injury that's nagging. Problem, though, and this is something that applies directly to the Yankees, in a 60-game season, if Giancarlo Stanton wakes up and says, my oblique's bothering me, are they going to take that same cautious day off with him, or are they going to run him out there because it's 60 games more important, and could that lead to more injuries? So that's why the Yankees, in my mind, there is some hesitance there, just because, again, just you don't know with the injuries, and they have the track record of the injuries. But, I mean, if anybody picks against them, it's just because you want to be trendy with the Rays. I do like the Rays. The Rays are a wild card pick for me, but there's no picking against the Yankees, all things being equal from day one.
You bring up a great point about how I think, too, to watch with the Yankees and all of Major League Baseball is when you have a 162-game season, guys get hurt. They'll take a day or two to give themselves rest. Now in a 60-day sprint, every game is so important. Guys may try to push through some pain, aggravate certain injuries, and all of a sudden an injury that really you could have sat out 2-3 days for, now you have to sit out a week, 10 days for, and that is huge.
A 15-day IL stint this year is costing you almost a quarter of your season.
I mean, so especially with the Yankees, you talked about all the injuries. It'll be big with every MLB team, but especially with them because of how much expectations are on them, because of the history of so many players on their team who have these little injuries that they get throughout the season. It'll definitely be something interesting to watch, but they're definitely the favorites. Going from the East to the AL Central, we both like the Twins. The Central, you can throw the Royals and the Tigers out the door.
Yeah.
The Twins and the Indians are going to probably be the pick for most people. The Indians still have a very good team. Lindor, Jose Ramirez leading the way. They got some nice pitchers in that staff, even though they lose Corey Kluber to the Rangers. And then the White Sox are kind of the team that I look at as like the Padres in the NL, this kind of young, up-and-coming team, a lot of stars. It stinks that they don't have Kopech, but still a lot of good talent, especially in their lineup. I mean, they can hit a little bit. Giolito had a great year for him. We'll see if he can build off of that this week. And just like the Angels and the fact that they're kind of the team in LA that nobody talks about other than Trout, the White Sox, I mean, nobody talks about them, especially when you're talking about the Chicago teams and comparing them to the Cubs. But I like Minnesota a lot. This is a 100-win team from last year.
People forget they won 100 games last year. 101 games they won, actually.
101 games. Jose Barrios is one of the best pitchers that nobody talks about. And their lineup, not as many stars as the Yankees or the Astros, but a lot of good, productive players.
Keep the line moving.
Keep the line moving. A lot of depth, too. And, you know, if guys do get injured and maybe they have to sit out, Minnesota doesn't have that reservation where the Yankees do, where they can go to other guys who they're comfortable with, can play a game for somebody if they're hurt. And I think Minnesota's a really good team, and we both like them.
Yeah, I've got nothing to add to that. Everything that I think, again, the AL, the boring part is the regular season because we agree on anything. So I have no dissenting opinions to that. We move on to the West. Same thing. We both agree on the Astros. And the West is a little different, a little more interesting because the A's are a trendy pick. And again, I think they're just that, a trendy pick.
Yes.
The Angels are a legit trendy pick in that people are kind of building up steam behind them. They get Ohtani back. They got Anthony Rendon. They still have the best player in the history of the sport. They have Albert Pujols still there to supply
Joe
something.
Madden, too, I think
I
is
was
the
just going to say,
biggest acquisition, honestly.
that's what I was just going to get to. Joe Madden is still the best, for my money, manager in baseball, and you add him into the equation now, and something we'll similarly talk about in the NL when we talk about the Phillies, or at least I will talk about when we talk about the Phillies, getting Joe Girardi, a roster that had some underrated talent in the Angels, plus that top-heavy talent of Trout, Rendon, Ohtani. He can take them to that next level.
Mm-hmm.
So I do like them. The A's, again, trendy, but I don't see it. None of them come close to the Astros still as far as the division stands. People hate them right now. That's understandable. But what you can't say is they're not a great team.
Their talent. Yeah.
They're absolutely loaded in that clubhouse. I mean, Altuve, Bregman, Springer, it just goes on, and Gurriel, and pitching, they still have Justin Verlander. They still have Zach Greinke. They lost A.J. Hinch as their manager.
McCullers is supposed to be really good this year.
McCullers, exactly. But you lost A.J. Hinch. You bring in Dusty Baker. So it's not like they went from a downgrade at manager. Dusty Baker is one of the most respected managers in the game. They have it all. As much as the fans would have had this revenge tour of booing them and the pitchers want to hit them with pitches, they have their own revenge tour. They're pissed at all the negative attention they've gotten for months, and they're going to want to come out and stick it to people and rub it in their faces.
And how big of an advantage is it for them that there's no fans in the stands for all these games? Because like you just said, every time they were going to go on the road this season, they were going to get booed. Every time an opposing pitcher hit one of their players, people were going to stand up and clap. They don't have to deal with any of that now. They just get to go out and play. Yes, pitchers are still going to hit them, but they don't have to deal with the crowd, and I think it's huge.
And again, we talked about the Yankees roster, but all those guys that I had just mentioned, plus Yordan Alvarez, plus Carlos Correa, they're loaded. I mean, there's a reason.
Like you said, people want to hate them because they're cheaters.
Kyle Tucker.
If you're not an Astros fan, you don't like them, but when you just look at face value on paper, they're still – I mean, this team, if they won a game at home, they were World Series champions.
There is a reason.
You lost Garrett Cole, but they're still good.
Yes, there's a reason why people are lower on them this year than the past couple of years. It's because they lost Garrett Cole.
Yes.
Again, they still have Verlander, Greinke, and McCullers. Like, it's not like they don't have any. It's not like Cole, and they still have. Verlander won the Cy Young last year over Cole. Yeah. So they are still loaded. And again, I think just the negative perception is just because people don't like them right now and don't want to give them any credit. But they are still absolutely loaded. This is a team that won the World Series and has been in the CS and the World Series the last couple of years since then, and they're right there. It's just it doesn't add up to me. Actually, it does add up to me. Again, like I said, I know why. It's because of Cole and because people just hate them right now. But they should be the team to beat 1A, 1B with the Yankees.
And you mentioned it too. Don't you think just as an athlete, like it would piss you off to hear people, even though you did cheat, but just to feel like you don't have any talent? Like the reason you succeeded was because you cheated.
Exactly.
Like
they're going to want to prove it this year.
Altuve, like they're good players. They're going to have something to prove. So I like the Astros a lot. I agree. People are sleeping on them. The Yankees are getting all the talk, but don't forget about Houston. And then, like you mentioned in the wild card, we both like Tampa. We both like the Angels a lot. I feel like a lot of people are going to have these 5 teams and either interchange the Angels or Oakland. I mean, one of those.
Presumably,
You know, Tampa's rotation with Glasnow and Snell and Morton, I mean, they're great. Their lineup is a lot like Minnesota in the sense that they don't have a bunch of stars, but they got some productive dudes in that order. Kevin Cash, one of the most underrated managers. He really is good at, you know, working the lineup card, interchanging his starters and bullpen guys. And then the Angels, Joe, I'm telling you, man, Joe Madden is just so good at what he does.
He's so good.
I mean, he really is. Trout, it was such a detriment to him to have Mike Scioscia and Brad Ausmus as his manager.
Oh, gosh.
Now he finally gets a real solid, good manager. Like you mentioned, I mean, they have some talent. Trout, Rendon, Upton, Pujols, Ohtani. Like, they got a team. Now they have a manager to go with it. And I really think the sky's the limit for the Angels, man. I think they can challenge the Astros in the West. I don't think they win the division, but I do think they get that wild card.
Look, I mean, the A's have talent. Again, I personally don't see them matching up with the Astros. And again, I think Madden takes the Angels to that next level. You could say that maybe this division could send 2 teams, but you just kind of like start looking around the league and doing the math as far as the case to be made for the A's. It's just I don't see the AL East not sending 2 teams with the Yankees and the Rays. So
Right.
the A's could be good. They could be a game or 2 out. It's going to be close, but I just think they end up, albeit the trendy pick right now, I think they, and you agree, are the team that is just slightly left looking
Yes.
inside from outside. And I know we make the jokes about it, but they do have a slight advantage in that they're used to playing in that big cavernous stadium with no sound, as are the Rays.
Yeah.
But I don't think that is going to take them to propel them past an Angels team that I think is going to finally reach its potential this year. So we're in agreement, top to bottom in the AL.
Yep. NL, a little different story.
And yes, NL's a different story. And we start with the East where my team lies. We couldn't really talk about your team. Sorry, because your team is just
Joe, I'm just
dumpster
happy
fire.
that it's July. It's going to be July 23rd, and the O's will be tied at first atop the AL East.
You're right.
You know,
Good
so
point.
there's some
Good point.
optimism.
Now, my team, though, the Mets in the NL East, that is the division to watch in this shortened season. It's the only division, I believe, unless odds have changed, it is the only division that has 4 teams with odds of 5-1 or better to win the division. 4 of them, and
Makes
the Braves,
sense.
Nationals, Mets, and Phillies.
Yeah.
Loaded division. They could cannibalize each other as far as thinking about who may or may not get the wild cards. The Braves, very impressive team last year. They ran a steam at the end. A lot of young guys in a sprint with last year's season in the back pocket as experience. They're elevated a notch in my book. The Mets have the talent, have the lineup, have the rotation, have DeGrom at the top of it. The big question is the bullpen. They improved the bullpen this year. They went out and got Dellin Betances. Edwin Diaz and Yuri Familia cannot possibly be worse than they were last year. And one of the least talked about greatest relief pitchers in baseball is Seth Lugo. So that bullpen could be really, really good out of nowhere. Last year, this team, I believe, led the league in blown save opportunities. They were in the upper 20s. Even if they would have been league average and had half of that, they would have been a near 100-win team last year. It's a very good team. People make fun of the Mets. People make fun of them every July 1st for Bobby Bonilla, rightfully so. But the talent's there. And I think in a sprint, we talk about the rotations. We talk about how important that really is. You've got Jacob DeGrom. You don't have Noah Syndergaard because he got hurt, but you've got Marcus Stroman. Don't forget about that deal from last year's trade deadline. You got Steven Matz. They added Rick Porcello into the mix, going from the AL to the NL, which I guess doesn't make too much of a difference this year anymore because the DH also migrated over to the NL with him. But they have all the pieces in place. And that bullpen, again, if Diaz and Familia go back to their all-star level of 2018, plus Lugo, plus now Betances, team to watch. And then all that before we even mention between the Mets and the Braves, before we even mention the Phillies and the Nationals, who I have 2 totally different opinions on this year. Last year, I was fading the Phillies. They were everybody's trendy pick. They put that quote-unquote dream team together, Bryce Harper, all the hype, this and that. And then they were saddled with Gabe Kapler as their manager. Players got hurt. Players didn't live up to the hype. The Nationals last year win the World Series. We were high on them. We thought that they could do well. We were surprised when they started off as slowly as they did.
Yeah.
This year, the Nationals, and you like them a lot. This is where we disagree big time.
Mm-hmm.
I do not at all like the Nationals this year. Their rotation is there, sure, but I think everything is there as far as the recipe for a letdown. There's always some sort of a hangover after winning the World Series for the most part for teams. So you've got that aspect of it. Now you throw into that 4 months off. You throw into that a shortened season. You throw into that Zimmerman's gone as the heart and soul of the team.
Yep.
The whole, the fans getting in the whole baby shark thing last year. Gerardo Parra also gone. Everything that made that team what it was last year, it's gone. Plus a World Series hangover. They still got the talent. They still have the starting pitching. But all those extra factors, I think, don't bode well for them. In addition to the fact that you look at last year, how much of a slow starter they were. If they start like that again, forget it. I mean, they're done. You can't recover from that in a 60-game season. So I don't really have much faith in them this year personally. The Phillies are my pick. The Phillies are my pick to go very far. They're my pick not to win the division. The Braves are my pick to win the division, but the Phillies are the team that I'm going to ride, and you'll see it later when we get to our playoff picks. I love the Phillies this year. I think opposite from last year where people were fading them, now a year together, that roster comes together, reaches the potential they should have had without the expectations that they were stuck with last year, and adding Joe Girardi into the mix in the same way that Joe Madden out with the Angels, adding Joe Girardi to that mix. It's just something about the name Joe. What can I say? But you add Joe Girardi into that mix, and he takes that team to the next level the same way that Joe Madden does for the Angels. So I love the Phillies this year. Braves are my pick to win the division. Beyond that, I look at the Phillies and the Mets as challengers with the Nats fading. And then I ultimately, as you'll see, I do have the Phillies in the wild card, but Braves win it for me. This is the division to watch once baseball starts back up.
No question. I hear what you're saying about the Nats. My thing, though, is that they're going to play 40 of their 60 games against divisional opponents. And every time they take the field, they're going to have the better starting pitcher on the mound unless they play DeGrom.
Oh, okay, there's your important qualifier.
Yeah, no, that's the only time. So when you look at that, I mean, that's why I like him so much. Rendon's a huge loss. There's no question about that.
Oh, yes. How did I even forget to mention that Rendon's got too? I'm sorry. And my whole diatribe trashing the Nationals, I forgot to mention that Rendon's also gone. Yes.
You know what the Nationals were last year is they were a Little League World Series team when it's so clear and obvious that there are two hitters on your team that are so much better than everybody else. You know, when you watch a Little League game and there's always those one or two kids, when they come up, you're like, okay, no matter how good the pitcher is, this kid could go yard. And that's what you got watching Soto and Rendon. Howie Kendrick's no slouch either. That's why I don't think the Nats lose too much with Rendon's bat in the sense that Howie's not too much worse of a hitter. He's obviously not the glove that Rendon is and Howie's a first baseman. But the fact Rendon's there is that Howie gave Soto and him protection. Now they need to find someone to give those two protection. They're hoping Starlin Castro can be that guy. But I still like the Nats a lot. The Braves, like you said, I mean, their lineup, you want to talk about young talent. Acuna, Ozzy Albies, Freddie Freeman can wake up out of bed and hit 300. I mean, he's just that kind of guy. Their lineup's great. Them and the Phillies, to me, are a lot alike in the sense that their lineups are very good, but which team's starting pitching is going to be better, you know? Last year, the Braves starting pitching for the most part was really good with Soroka and Foltynewicz and Fried, and the Phillies wasn't good with Arrieta, and Aaron Nola was awful last year. So whichever one of those teams can be better from a starting pitching standpoint, I think has a better chance to win the East. But with that being said, I'm still rolling with the Nats. They lost Rendon, but Will Harris, getting him from the Astros and putting them on the Nats to add to that bullpen, I think was a great, great pickup by Mike Rizzo, the GM. And I think they're set up to win another NL East title. So We'll see. But that's definitely the best division in all of baseball, no question. Yeah, NL Central, we also disagree. And this is an interesting division. You can throw the Pirates out the window. They won't be any good.
Get them out of here.
You got the Cubs, the Cardinals, the Reds, and the Brewers. And the Reds, like the White Sox, like the Padres, a lot of good young talent on that team. But I just, I need to see it first in intuition. We hear about these guys coming up, the Nick Senzels and Aquamides, whatever his name is or whatever. Joey Votto's still there. They got some good talent. But, man, the Cubs, talk about good lineups. And, I mean, they still got Rizzo. They still got Bryant. They still got Baez. Their pitching, too, I'm a little worried about. Those guys have definitely gone down since they won the World Series. Lester's getting older. Hendricks isn't quite what he was. And they lose Joe Madden, too, which is big. David Ross.
I was just going to say, for everything that you said about Joe Madden, to promote the Angels, you have to say it to take away from the Cubs. But David Ross is a great hire, in my opinion. So,
and again, he's a rookie, so you don't know what you're going to get from him. I was tempted to take the Cardinals over the Cubs in the Central. They would have been my second pick, but I don't know. You just hate betting against the Cardinals, especially still while Yachty's still there, but Jack Flaherty's one of the best pitchers in baseball. They still got Goldschmidt. They lost Ozuna, though, to the Braves, which was pretty big. They lost Jose Martinez to Tampa. That was big. So I'm rolling with the Cubs in the Central.
I'm going with the Reds. and you weren't buying their stock. I'll buy it all up. They have probably the best starting rotation that nobody talks about. Luis Castillo, Sonny Gray, Trevor Bauer, Wade Miley, Anthony DeSclafani, 1 through 5.
Yeah,
Good luck.
solid.
You mentioned that the Nats only don't have the advantage for the most part against the Mets when they play DeGrom. The Reds aren't going to be at a disadvantage against anybody in that division when it comes to the starting rotation. You mentioned the guys.
Unless Flaherty, that's it.
Yeah, you mentioned the guys in the lineup. They had Mike Moustakas, Nicholas Castellanos. They're loaded, and nobody talks about it. And again, it starts with that starting pitching. Bullpen's different story, but they have all the pieces there. As long as the bullpen could give them something, I'm really hot on the Reds this year. I'm not talking big red machine of old, but like in a shortened 60-game sprint, we keep coming back to starting pitching being the most important thing. And this starting rotation, top to bottom, might be the best in baseball. You look at the Nats with their big three. You look at the Mets with, well, in a year if they would have had Syndergaard with Syndergaard, Stroman, and DeGrom. You look at the Astros with their three and Verlander, Greinke, McCullers. But 1 through 5, I don't think anybody in baseball touches this, and they're going to turn some heads this year. So the Reds are my team, and for all the debate that there is in the Central, there is zero debate out west.
You talked about how if people don't pick the Yankees in the East, it's because they won an argument. If people don't pick the Dodgers in the West, then they just looking for trouble.
Yes.
Don't overthink this one. The Giants don't have Buster Posey, and Bruce Bochy's gone. The Padres, I get it. A lot of good young talent. They could be a playoff team this year, but they're not going to win their division. The Rockies made the playoffs a couple of years ago, but that's because everything was going right for them. They got Blackmon and Arenado still. It definitely helps them that they'll start off the season in Coors Field in the middle of summer. So runs should be flying out of Coors Field, but then again, they were going to give up quite a few as well. And then the Diamondbacks, they do get Bumgarner. They get Cole Calhoun as well, but just still not quite enough pieces, especially to challenge them.
The Dodgers are loaded. I mean, there's not much to talk about here. Kershaw, Buehler, Ryu, everybody in that rotation, everybody in that bullpen, Kenley Jansen at the back end, he's got to regain his form from 2018. We talk about the revenge factor of wanting to prove themselves. All this talk about who the Astros really cheated out of titles. I mean, the Dodgers were right there to get cheated out of one of them too. Right there, the main World Series in question was against the Dodgers. So from a lineup standpoint, you got Mookie Betts into the equation now, and he just signed himself a 13-year, $380 million contract that I didn't know was possible in these times of COVID right now. And you had people, I think Peter Gammons was saying it. I'm sorry if I'm crediting that to this freezing cold take to the wrong person, but they said that he'd be hard pressed to get $250 million in the current climate. He got 13 for 380, so he got pretty much just what he was going to
buy his agent a nice little steak dinner there.
More than that. So
that's some good work.
He's got that deal to not have to worry about that hanging over his head. If he would have gone into the season with no deal in place, would you get the same Mookie Betts? I don't know, because COVID, injuries, short 60 games. You don't want to risk that contract, but he's got that now, so he doesn't have to worry about that. So that could even take his game to another level. Their lineup absolutely stacked. Again, of all the divisions, you could make the case for the Rays in the AL East. There is no case to be made for anybody else besides the Dodgers.
I mean, this would truly be a shock.
Yes,
this
absolutely.
Would be a shock. Baseball and hockey are the two major sports where you're used to upsets and there are some surprises, but man, it's going to be tough to convince me that somebody else is going to win that division other than the Dodgers. I'm with you. And then the wild card, we both like the Phillies. I'm on the Braves. I got 3 NL East teams coming out of the NL. Honestly, it's kind of just a process of elimination. I look around the rest of the NL. We just talked about the West, how maybe the Padres, but I don't think so.
Phillies
NL Central, Brewers, Cardinals, Reds, maybe, but I think the Braves and the Phillies are better than the Brewers. It'll be tough because there are so few games and so many of those games are against divisional opponents. It might be tough to get 3 teams in there, but I think the East finds a way to do it. They get the Nats, Braves, and Phillies in.
that's what dissuaded me from picking 3 in that division, just because they'll eat each other up.
Makes sense.
So I look out west, nobody there. I look to the Central, and again, it's just my pick of the Cubs, Cardinals, or Brewers, of which I just happen to feel like Brewers is the answer. We saw them last year. They were a botched play in right field away from beating the Nats in the wild card game
Yep.
and changing all of baseball history.
Yes.
So they're a very solid team, and I'll go with them for that wild card spot. But it's going to be I think the second wild card, or the first, depending on whatever the case is with the games. One of the wild card spots, let's put it that way, is up for grabs from the Central and the Central only.
I agree. So you want to continue with the playoff picks, or you want to give the Cy Young MVP?
No, let's save the awards for the end. Let's go right into the
right.
play.
So the playoff picks, back to the AL. So we both had the Rays Angels in our wild card game, and we're both sticking with the Rays.
Yes.
We like the Angels
Love
a
the
lot.
Rays.
You know, that'll be some matchup with Joe Madden going up against his former team in the playoffs. We would love to see Trout advance, but the Rays, people forget, in the ALDS, they took the Astros to a game 5. They win that game. They go on to the CS to play the Yankees. Who knows what happens? Mm-hmm. They're a really good team, and
agreed.
We both like them to get past.
Anything can happen in a wild card game, but I go with the Rays, and that gives us a Rays-Yankees ALDS.
Yep.
I go Yankees. We talked about it earlier. Don't have to get into it too much more. We have to assume health.
Yes.
And assuming health, the Yankees are just better than the Rays, and the Yankees continue historically to have the Rays number. The Rays are a pesky team. They can get it done. They can throw different looks at you. They have a good starting rotation. They could also throw the opener at you and hit you from that that philosophy. And they hammered the Astros with that last year in the postseason. And, going back as far as the late 2000s, the Rays are just always there. They don't have much of a payroll. They don't have the
ball, baby. Gotta love it.
And they do it so well. They take what the A's started and the Red Sox turned into a World Series, and they've made it their perpetual, perennial MO, and they do it so well. But
they do.
Again, going up against the Yankees, this is the first spot we differ, but I go with the Yankees.
I had the same mindset as you. Everyone's going to be picking Yankees, Dodgers, World Series. I doubt it happens because, especially in baseball, when you think it's too good to be true with two teams, it almost never happens. Yes. Because I just think so highly of the Dodgers, and I don't see really a team in the NL that can beat them. I think the Yankees go down in the AL. It very well could be to the Twins or the Astros in the next round, but I think with Tampa, we talked about how much we like them because they're in the same division as the Yankees. There's so much familiarity there. They understand what it takes to beat them. And Joe, something very underrated with the Yankees when they get to the playoffs, they have the best home field advantage in playoff baseball.
And it's gone. Yep.
Yankees Stadium, there's just something about it when you watch it on TV. It's a spooky, scary, funky place, especially in those late innings when the sun goes down and they won't have fans anymore to cheer them on. And that's going to be a huge, huge factor, I think, for them in the playoffs. And I think the Rays pull the upset and take down the Yankees.
Fair enough. Now, we agree on this next one, Astros over Twins. Not much to this one for me. After Berrios, don't trust the Twins starting rotation a lot. The Astros, they can throw those 3 at you, Verlander, Greinke, McCullers. You can gush over the Astros lineup enough. For me, that's probably a 3-game set. That's it. Move on.
I'm with you. It's a lot like the Yankees-Twins series from last year. Twins were a nice story, but then they go up against they're overmatched.
That puts me at Astros-Yankees, which is the matchup I would love to see because of all the controversy in the offseason. And I go with the Astros sticking it to the Yankees again. The Yankees cannot get over that hump of the Astros. It has been the thorn in their side for a few years now, and I think it persists. Banging on a trash can and video or not. Quick,
here's the question. Does Garrett Cole hit his own teammates?
That's a good question.
If that happens.
That's a good question during the season. I don't know. I don't think he will. But in this series, again, it's, the story of both teams. You don't have to go through it.
Yep.
I just coin flip, go with the Astros. Everybody's on a quote-unquote revenge tour against the Astros. They're on their own revenge tour to prove that they're damn good at baseball, and it wasn't just because of the video that they won. It enhanced it probably for sure.
Mm-hmm.
No denying that.
Yep.
They're just a very, very good ball club. So I've got the Astros back in the World Series.
And I'm going with Tampa. I'm riding on the Rays. I don't know what it is, Joe. I got a certain feeling about them. I thought the Nats would make it to the World Series last year. I had a
Our boy Zach Hamilton's going to be very happy about that.
He will be very happy. I just have the same funny feeling about the Rays. I don't know why. It's kind of crazy to think that they beat the Yankees and the Astros back to back, but we'll see what happens. I mean, the Nats
That'd be
beat
the
the
ultimate
Dodgers and the
underdog story.
Astros last year. So
That'd be a big time baseball underdog story for the
that would
Rays to go
and the
Astros and
year
Yankees.
with so much craziness, wouldn't it make sense that a team like Tampa would, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I don't know. So we'll
Yeah.
see what happens. Joe is the Astros. I got the Rays.
And then over in the NL, starting with the wild card there, we both have the Phillies getting through. I just have them over the Brewers. You have them over the Braves.
Yep, and for everything you said, Joe Girardi over Gabe Kapler.
Especially in the postseason.
What's a bigger upgrade, the Angels from Madden to Ausmus or the Phillies from Girardi to Kapler?
Probably the Phillies, because Joe
Really?
Girardi, I think so, yeah. I think that Ausmus never really got a fair shake out there.
Okay.
And the only reason he got fired as quickly as he did was because Joe Madden was available. Gabe Kapler was just bad, and I don't know why the Giants turned around and hired him. Gabe Kapler was just bad, and Joe Girardi is just good. So I think Madden is better than Joe Girardi. But as far as bigger upgrade, just because I think Kapler was at such a lower point than Ausmus, I go with the Phillies situation. So give me them in the wild card, getting the W, moving on. Look to the NLDS, Dodgers, Phillies. We both would then have that. This is where we differ again. This is the point where we diverge from each other in the NL. I love the Phillies with Joe Girardi. Woo. I think there's a lot of pressure again on the Dodgers. The one thing that isn't talked about enough for the Dodgers every year is the pressure that's on them, and they always fold. And it starts, as much as I love him, it starts with Kershaw always collapses under the pressure. So it's a question mark what the Phillies starting rotation is going to look like. Mm-hmm. But I just think they're very well managed with Joe Girardi. The talent is there on the pitching staff to take it to that next level, and the lineup is just great. So give me them, and go ahead and put them in the World Series for me as well, because in the other side in the NL, I personally have the Reds over the Braves, but I've got the Phillies then over the Reds. The Reds are my surprise team, beating the Braves. I told you how much I love their starting rotation. Yeah. Their lineup doesn't get enough credit, especially with those couple of acquisitions of Moustakas, Castellanos, in addition to what they already had. They're a very complete team for this sprint, and that starting five is the best starting five top to bottom in baseball. They don't have the star power of some other teams, but it's the best all the way around. The Reds are the surprise. They make it to the NLCS. I almost picked them over the Phillies, but I just go with Joe Girardi, Bryce Harper, all those guys finally putting it together like they were hyped to last year. And I've got an Astros-Phillies World Series.
Okay. I got Dodgers over Phillies for everything we've already said with the Dodgers. I think they're the most complete team in baseball. And then Nats, Cubs, I'm rolling with the Nats. They got over that hump last year when they finally broke through and won the World Series. Even without Zimmerman, I just feel like there's this newfound belief amongst them, and I just think they match up really, really well with the Cubs. Before they won the World Series, the previous times that they've met, I mean, they should have beaten them both times. And I think if they face again, they'll take care of business. So I got a rematch of Dodgers, Nats, this time in the NLCS. And I think this time the Dodgers get the better of the Nats, get back to the World Series for the third time in 4 years. And I got them facing off against Tampa Bay.
And I guess you have the Dodgers, unless we're going for a total underdog story here.
I do have the Dodgers.
Okay.
We've talked about the Lightning in the NHL, how it's just their time. They're due. There's so much talent on that team, and they just haven't won a Stanley Cup. And I look at the Dodgers the same way. With the talent they have, there is no excuse, especially with the addition of Mookie Betts, Bellinger, Muncy, Turner, Seager. I mean, it's insane. And then Walker Buehler might be the best pitcher in the NL, not named Jacob deGrom. He's disgustingly good. Kershaw, I think, still has a little left in the tank. Dave Roberts is the key to me, though. I mean, he's really got to manage well in the postseason, but I think this is the Dodgers' year. They're more than due to finally get over the hump, and I think that they are the World Series champions of 2020.
I go with the Astros. I think the Astros over the Phillies, or again, it was a coin flip for me, Phillies, Reds. So whether it's Astros over Phillies or Astros over Reds, got the Astros. Like I for no further explanation needed. Loaded team.
Yep.
This is them giving the middle finger to everybody who was shunning them for the last 6 months. That's as simple as I can put it to you. They are on their own revenge tour. They want to prove that they're good at baseball, and they're going to do that, and they're going to lift the trophy. The quote-unquote
That'll
hunk
be
of
something.
metal, as Rob Manfred put it. But they're going to win it, and they're going to say, here, take that. There's our legit World Series. Put an asterisk next to this. So I got the Astros. And now, just to run through them real quick, forget Rookie of the Year, 60 games. Who knows? That the rookies
So
are a
many guys
mishmash.
interchanging in and out.
Yeah, but just a quick run through here of the seasonal awards.
Yep.
MVP in the AL for me is the easiest one. Mike Trout. From here until Mike Trout retires, I'm never picking against Mike Trout for AL MVP.
Joe, if it was a normal year, I'd be right with you. But honest to God, I think it's going to be Gleyber Torres for the simple fact he plays the Orioles 10 times. And
That's true.
Gleyber will hit 10 home runs at least in those 10 games. And then right there, you got to figure in his next 50, he'll probably hit another 10 or 15. He'll be far and away the home run leader with 25 or so home runs. And I think with guys in the Yankees lineup getting injured, whether it's Judge or Stanton, he'll be the mainstay in that order. And he is good, man. He's been on this steady up climb, and I think he finally takes over.
Not a bad option. Not a bad option. In the NL, you go with another youngster. I go with another more established guy, Bryce Harper. I think Bryce Harper's problem sometimes.
Yeah.
Bryce Harper's problem sometimes is he gets bored. Honestly, I feel that way for Bryce Harper. He doesn't, I don't think, eat, sleep, and breathe baseball like some players do. And I think in a 162-game slog, he gets bored. Give him and his competitive juices a 60-game sprint.
Watching the Nats just win the World Series?
Yep, that short right field in Philadelphia. Give me that. Bryce Harper finally, not finally, he's got one already in his pocket, but proves that he was worth something at least for that contract he got last year, and he gets himself the MVP, and that's why I think the Phillies make it as far as they do. I think he propels them.
NL MVP was tough. I mean, you could go Harper, Soto, Bellinger, Yelich. I mean, there are so many studs. I went Acuna. Being the leadoff hitter, he gets so many at-bats, so many opportunities. 60-game season. You talk about how Bryce Harper gets bored sometimes. Acuna, I love the way he plays. He hustles, and I think he's going to have a big-time year for Atlanta.
All right, then manager of the year. Joe Madden, nothing needs to be said. We've both spent enough time saying how much we love him. For you, Joe Girardi, nothing really needs to be said. Same thing we've already said. The one that's kind of out of left field here is me saying David Bell for the Reds. When it comes down to it, if the Reds team does what I think this Reds team is going to do and win the division, they don't have as much talent on paper as the Phillies do, and they're going to get very widely recognized as a big story, and I think he gets the award. So that's why I go with him over Joe Girardi. Again, Girardi is a better manager. David Bell, right man, right time. This Reds team can make some noise this year. Cy Young, my boys won 2 in a row, and Jacob deGrom.
You want to add a third to that, trivia question coming on later on in the show that you got. And I heard something related to this.
I gave you a little sneak peek that the trivia would have something to do with the Cy Young, and Jacob deGrom is going to win it again. And my thinking on this is, in a 60-game season, I don't think you're going to have a big gap between winner and runner-ups for these awards. It's not a scientific formula who gets the award. It's human voters. And in a year where it might be splitting hairs between a Jacob deGrom and a Walker Buehler and a Max Scherzer, I think the human side of people is just going to, again, these are baseball writers that vote for this. In their minds, I just think the better story, the easier way to break the tie is just give it to the guy who could win 3 in a row. So I don't think deGrom is going to blow these guys away. Yeah. Maybe this is me reading into it too much. I don't think he's going to blow guys away. I think it's going to be close between him, Buehler, Scherzer, the usual suspects. But if it comes down to it, and you're like last year with Cole and Verlander, where there really wasn't much separating them, they sided with the more established veteran guy in Verlander over Cole. I think they'll be like, he's won 2 in a row. This is a great story. Let's make him win 3 in a row. Like, I think that could be part of the thought process. So
absolutely could be. No, I like that. I was between Walker Buehler and Steven Strasburg, going back and forth, but I went with Buehler just because, like you talked about with the Astros, how Cole and Verlander last year. We're kind of in this two-horse race. I just feel like Scherzer could cut into some of Strasburg's, love and talk and whatever. And Buehler, I think people will be talking about, this is the true handing of the torch from Kershaw to Buehler.
Could be.
He's the guy. The Dodgers are going to win a lot of games, so I think he's going to get plenty of run support with that lineup. He'll have plenty of wins. He'll get plenty of strikeouts. He's going to have a good ERA. DeGrom's a tough guy to pick against, but I'm going with Buehler.
And in the AL, I go with Garrett Cole. I think he deserved it last year. He should have won it last year. Verlander got it last year. And I think that is – maybe he doesn't let it on, but that's weighing on Garrett Cole's mind. I think he deserved it. And he's got that in the back of his mind. He's got that the contract now to go with his talent. The Yankees are his team growing up, and he's got a chance to put it all together now. I think he's going to have a stellar season. And just, again, human voters, name recognition. Part of the reason why I think Verlander got it over Cole is because the year prior, there was the whole controversy as to whether or not Verlander got screwed out of it when Kate Upton sent the famous tweet. I thought only I was allowed to F Justin Verlander. So similar to that, if it's close, I think they side with Garrett Cole as a makeup for last year because he probably deserved it last year. But last year was Justin Verlander's makeup year. So I think if he's close, it's going to Garrett Cole.
And I'm going with Jose Berrios. I was telling you when I like Minnesota, I like him a large reason because of him. I think he's one of the best pitchers that nobody really talks about. And Minnesota's going to win a good amount of games. He was great for them last year. Cole's tough to pick against for everything you just said. I think Verlander and Greinke will be great again. But I just like Berrios. I got a feeling, these awards, some of it is going to be chalk for sure, and then some of it could be an off-the-radar kind of guy.
Out of nowhere.
And I think Berrios has a chance to snag that Cy Young, so we'll see what happens.
All right, well, from baseball, which is finally back, we transition to our guest for the week, talking about something in the little bit further distant future, but not too far in the distant future anymore, because training camp starting next week. We've got Dan Orlovsky on to talk NFL football. Pleased to be joined this week by former NFL quarterback and current NFL analyst for ESPN, Dan Orlovsky. Dan, thanks so much for joining us. How you doing through this whole crazy time that we're seeing in the United States right now?
Yeah, good to be with you guys. Thanks for having me. I'm doing great, man. Doing great. A lot of people are going through a lot right now. It's like so many other people. We are trying to do the best that we can and trying to find ways to have fun and have joy and smile as a family and help people and find this time to get better. So all things considered, doing well.
Of course. And now before we jump into the big news of the week, PJ is a Ravens fan. I am a Jets fan. How good should we both feel about our quarterbacks in Lamar Jackson and Sam Darnold going through the next 5 years?
Well, I feel a lot better about Lamar.
I like that, Dan.
Yeah, because of who is around Lamar, and I have been somebody who has said, if the roles were reversed and Sam was on a team similar to Lamar's team when it comes to structure and talent and integrity of the organization and how well they draft, everyone would be talking about Sam Darnold in a completely different type of light. So Lamar's a phenomenal player. He's in a situation that totally understands what he's great at, and they emphasize that. But Sam Darnold will be fine. Sam is – they're a year away. The Jets are still a year away from even being competent around him. So he's going to have some good moments this year. He'll have some struggles as well. But the big thing for him is to not get discouraged. He's got to constantly keep learning. And I think that once they get a complementary unit around him, he'll blow up.
And now the big story that came out this week was the NFL officially announcing no preseason games. As a former player, how big of an effect do you think no preseason has on the players, especially on quarterbacks, like you mentioned, Darnold, needing to take advantage of all the extra work they can?
Yeah, it'll be enormous. I would say that veterans will have a massive advantage compared to young guys when it comes to just making the football team. And listen, we've seen the start of the season play kind of diminish over the past couple of years because even training camp has been stripped away in so much, in such a capacity that the first couple weeks of the season have even been, I would say performance-wise less than ideal. And so the first month of this season is going to be some bad football. There's going to be some rough football going on. We're gonna see a lot of teams that aren't who they are, and teams will be playing much, much better and different in November than they are in September. I'd say this, like, the hardest adjustment for players outside of getting back into your routine and getting your body just back into football shape and feeling in football shape is just, I've always said this, the color and how fast the color happens. A lot of players are reactionary players, and they react off color and feel. And one of the hardest things after time off for myself and so many quarterbacks in conversation was, just how it feels to be back under center and things moving so quickly. It's 2.5 seconds, guys.
Yeah.
So
right.
Not having those, in training camp, those are hundreds of reps of just getting yourself back to feeling that and almost muscle memorying that, and just, again, feeling color with your eyes or seeing the color with your eyes be trigger points. So that'll be the biggest adjustment for so many quarterbacks. And obviously, the young ones will probably struggle the most, and I think there will be a young one or two that'll benefit from it, because what you don't know, you don't know. And so they'll just go out there and fly by the seat of their pants early on and maybe have some success because of it.
There's been so much talk over the years about how 4 preseason games is too much. Now that we're not going to get any, do you think going forward we maybe only get 2 preseason games, or we won't even get any from here on out?
No, we will have preseason games because, listen, this is because of everything that's going on, and it's not about the dollar amounts for the NFL or the players. It's trying to pull this off, right? And
right.
So did this really help anybody pull it off? No, the preseason game was not going to help anybody get to December, and so that was the big decision. It's a mature decision by both sides. We will still have preseason games at some point. Do I believe that this is going to be an example that the PA is going to be able to point to, or owners will point to and say, see, we don't need any at all? No, because I do believe the football is going to be poor early on. And so, you're going to have a lot of coaches and organizations point to wanting those preseason games. Because, think about how difficult this is going to be for organizations to decide the last 5 people on their roster.
Of course.
And I know a lot of people think that the bottom part of the roster doesn't matter. It's totally the opposite. Those 50th, 51st, 52nd, 53rd guys become so impactful for so many teams. And so you'll never get organizations and coaches not wanting some form of preseason game. So this is just that one-off. It's the right decision for now.
Dan, moving over now to the best quarterback in the game and the wealthiest, Patrick Mahomes. I know how highly you think of Mahomes. When his contract is over in 2031, assuming he stays healthy, do you think that we're going to look at him as the greatest quarterback to ever do it?
I do. That's saying a lot. I do. I look at it because really he should have been part of 2 Super Bowls in his first 2 years starting, right? Is his team going to change over the next 3 or 4 years and what's around him? Yes. Now, he's the 329th highest paid player this year. He's the 39th highest paid player next year. And then he's the 15th highest paid player in 2022. So you're talking about the next 3 years that they are going to have still some relatively good cap space, flexibility-wise. I believe they'll win 2 out of the next 3 Super Bowls. I think they're going to win it this year. So let's go to, what is really going to give him the longevity? Because he could throw for a gajillion yards and it's not going to matter. Well, Pat's so good. Did you win the Super Bowl or not? That's just the way it's gone. Whether we think it's fair, I don't, but whether you think it's fair or not. So if you look at the Chiefs when it comes to their draft, right? I would challenge people to go through the first 3 rounds of their draft and find me more than 2 whiffs over the last 10 years. Whiffs, where you go, that guy was taken in the 2nd round, and he stunk for the Chiefs, and he stunk for everybody else, right? the last time is they got a corner in, like, in 2016 or 2017, Russell, and then they took Jonathan Baldwin in the first round of 2011.
Oh, yeah.
They draft really well. Like, if you go to everybody and you go, who are the best players on the Chiefs that make Patrick Mahomes so special? Travis Kelce, 3rd-round pick. Tyreek Hill, 4th-round pick. Williams, undrafted free agent. Miko Hardman, 2nd-round pick. Like, these guys aren't top 10 first-rounders.
Right.
So
Yeah.
they just draft really, really, really well, and they find value in areas where you need to find value. Robinson, 6th-round pick, I believe. So just they've got a great feel for value, and they've got a great understanding of what a player can become with good development. And so, you look at the talent at the position, you look at the head coach, and then you look at, is the organization set up to support that? And the resounding answer is yes for Kansas City.
Our next question was going to be, are they your pick to repeat? But you already answered that. So I guess the better question to ask now would be, who's their biggest threat in the AFC, and then who would be their biggest threat ultimately in the Super Bowl itself?
Yeah, I would say that, yes, Baltimore is their biggest threat. I put an asterisk next to that because, listen, Baltimore's amazing, and Lamar is incredible. But one of the things that made Baltimore incredibly unique last year was how they utilized their 3 tight end set. All 3 of those guys were good in the run game. So if you put all 3 of those guys on the field and use them in your run game, it was like having 8 offensive linemen in your run game blocking scheme. All 3 of them were good in the pass game and understanding zones. So you put all 3 of those guys in the field, and they think you're going to run it, so they match with big bodies as a defense, then the pass game becomes deadly. And so, they moved on from Hayden Hurst and traded him to Atlanta, and that is one of the things I'm fascinated to see is how do they replace him? And can they replace him and still be, that was such a big part of keeping defenses uneasy is, let alone having good play calls, they got you in bad personnel situations. So, Baltimore is intriguing to me, of course. I'm somebody who thinks Buffalo is going to be really good. I think Buffalo is going to be a really, really good, difficult football team. They're not going to beat themselves. No, they're not going to go blow you out, but they're going to always be in football games. And that quarterback is good enough. Josh Allen's good enough where when you're in those situations in 4th quarters, he can make some plays. And he could do some stuff that win you games. That defense will keep him in every football game. So, I'm somebody that's pretty high on Buffalo, probably higher than some other people. Pittsburgh, to me, Pittsburgh's 8-8 last year with the worst quarterback play in the NFL.
Yeah, it's true.
So my thing is, I look at it in comp to Baltimore. Baltimore is losing at worst, their 2nd best player in Marshall Yanda. He's gone. He retired. That's at worst their 2nd best player if you want to tell me Lamar's best. Pittsburgh gets their best player back. I mean, Big Ben did not play last year. He's their best player. Led the league in passing in 2018. So Pittsburgh, for me, is a team that I look at and I go, it's hard for me not to see them winning 12 games and just being really, really hard. They've got great back-end play in their defense. They can rush the passer. They're athletic to keep up with Mahomes and his movement and their offense. If Juju becomes what Juju should become, and he hasn't done it without AB, but if he becomes that bona fide one, their offense will be very good.
And now there were a lot of big names who switched teams ahead of this upcoming season that we've pretty much forgotten about because this is the time of year where we'd be seeing images of them in mini camps and whatnot. But of those big names that are in new places, who are you most excited to see with their new team this year?
Oh, definitely Tom. Definitely Tom Brady. We're talking, the quarterback that left Utopia in many ways. Yeah. It was one of the best places to be. And, it consciously made a decision to move on and made a decision to move on to a team that hasn't won in forever. It's the worst organization in the history of the NFL when it comes to winning percentage. And went to a place that's got a top 6 receiver and 2 top 10 guys and a Hall of Fame tight end that came out of retirement. Number 1 receiver, our first-round draft pick at tight end that, with a quarterback that's got a really good understanding of the offense is going to get him the ball. An offensive line that's improved. The defense that is, going to be a top 5, top 7 defense this year. So for him to make that leap and to chase that, and if he's able to go down there and get them to, the NFC Championship or to the Super Bowl, I mean, it's going to be an incredible ride to watch. And so that's the easy answer for me is I am all eyes on Tom. Because, to be honest with you guys, I was one of the people after the Super Bowl or after that interception got thrown, I said, 1, there's no chance Tom retires, and 2, there's no chance he goes back to New England. And so just kind of seeing that come to fruition, I want to see it play itself out.
Dan, one more question for you before we get into our 2 fun segments that we like to do with all our guests at the end. Recently on Get Up, I heard you say that Tiger Woods was your favorite athlete of all time. So I was just curious, what makes Tiger your favorite, and have you ever gotten a chance to meet him?
Never met him. Would love to, obviously. What makes him my favorite is just I'm a guy that, as an athlete, I fell in love with the grind. I fell in love with the sucky part of it and the work and the tireless and the lonely and the thankless work. I loved it. And Tiger's done that better than anybody. In my generation, better than anybody ever. And I love that he wanted to door stomp you. I love that he wanted to blow your doors off and beat the living snot out of you when it came to golf.
Right.
He didn't want to win. He wanted to embarrass you. And I love that mentality. And so his commitment to it, the way he could grind, the way you could just, I'm a golf fanatic as well, but the way he would just grind when he knew he wasn't at his best and the mental commitment. Now, I don't know if you guys have ever done it. My guess is yes, or maybe some of your listeners, but go walk 18 holes and play golf.
It's not easy.
Exactly. And now do it 4 days in a row with money on the line. When you can't hit a bad shot and laugh it off with your boys and go rip a beer. Every shot matters. Every single shot matters. And so just that mental commitment that he would make. And then I'll say this. I think it's to get to the top of the mountain, this goes into life too. To get to the top and be really, really good is incredibly difficult. But to pull yourself from the depths, I say this to people who go through some really dark times in their lives. I have such respect for people that can pull themselves out of self-mistakes. And when they bury themselves for being an idiot, do you have the ability to pull yourself out of it? And then, not accept that. And for him to do that to his own, listen, he did it to himself, but he also pulled himself out of it. And I just have such admiration and kind of love for that.
PJT's those 2 fun closing segments we like to do. The first one we call it the Swift 7, just 7 rapid fire questions. First thing that comes to mind. And I'll start off. Number 1 ties into what we were just talking about. What is your favorite Tiger Woods moment?
Winning the Masters last year in 2019.
Number 2, favorite NFL venue?
Lambeau Field, Sunday Night Football.
All right. Number 3, favorite pregame meal?
Chicken parm.
Number 4, Sam Darnold or Josh Allen?
Sam Darnold.
Number 5, what's your favorite game that you've ever played in at any level?
This is give me a second here, fellas. You know what? Since I'm a talker, I'm going to give you one at every level. So,
okay. All right.
High school football. We're playing one of our rivals. My junior year, my sophomore year of high school, we went 8-2, didn't make the playoffs. We lost to our rival, second to last game of the year. My junior year, we went 9-1, didn't make the playoffs. We lost to our rival, second to last game of the year. My senior year, we're playing our rival. We're 9-0 at this point, I believe, or 8-0 at this point. If we beat our rival, we are going to win our last game and get in. Finally, great game at their place, game-winning drive, got it done.
Nice.
That's my favorite high school game. College, I would say the first time that we played to open up our stadium at Rensselaer Field at UConn, it was you can't go to UConn and play big-time football. You guys will never be good. Don't go there. They're too small. But to open up that 40,000-person stadium, packed house, and blow the doors off a Big Ten team was really kind of the marquee moment. And then in the NFL, I'd say game-winning drive that I had on Thursday Night Football when I'm playing for the Colts to beat the Texans. A lot of good buddies on that team because I played for them 2 years previous to that. They cut me right before training camp. You're not good enough anymore. Second to last game of the year, they're the 3 seed in the playoffs, and I threw a game winner to Reggie to beat them to drop their playoff seed. That was my favorite one.
Attaboy, Dan. That's some good stuff. Number 6, who will have the better NFL career, Tua or Joe Burrow?
Wow, great question. Joe Burrow. They're both going to be phenomenal. Joe Burrow, I would say, does the most important non-physical aspect of quarterbacking better than Tua. He never panics.
Mm-hmm.
Never panics. And I think that is going to set him up for tremendous success.
And last question, the Swift 7, what is your favorite football movie?
My favorite football movie would be Remember the Titans.
Yep.
Mainly because it's also my wife's.
Okay.
Also the messages and the life lessons tied to it. I'm a movie crier as well, so you have moments to cry.
Nice.
Just a lot of really cool life lessons. Almost takes you back in time to your own football memories as well.
Definitely. And Dan, before we let you go, we give a trivia question for all our guests. Obviously, you get an NFL question. You'll have 90 seconds on the clock and 3 strikes to try and get your question right. Joe, if you want to put 90 seconds on.
I got it.
Yep. All right, Dan. And your question is, can you name the 4 quarterbacks from last season who threw 30 or more touchdown passes?
In the NFL.
In the NFL.
Okay, Lamar Jackson.
He was number 1.
Lamar Jackson. It's not Tom. I got 90 seconds, huh?
Yep.
Yep, you got 1:10 left. Plenty of time.
Drew Brees.
Not Breeze.
Okay, Lamar Mahomes.
No, Mahomes.
Oh, that's 2
Strike number
strikes.
2.
Wow. Jameis.
Jameis is correct. 30 touchdowns and 30 interceptions.
Russell Wilson.
Russell is on
Yes.
there as well. You need 1 more. 1 strike left, and we'll just need 1 correct answer.
40 seconds and 1 strike.
It's not Mahomes, huh?
It's not Mahomes, no.
25 seconds.
Dak Prescott.
Correct.
There we
Dan
go.
Orlovsky, the winner. Well done. Lamar was number 1 with 36. Jameis was number 2 with 33. Russell was 3rd with 31. And Dak was right on the number with 30 touchdown passes. I was surprised at Mahomes. Yeah, I was surprised at Mahomes too. But, you know, those games he missed the middle of the year, I guess he just didn't make enough up to get over.
What a bum.
What a bum, exactly. Well, I was trying to channel my inner Hembo there for you with the trivia question. So well done.
Man, Embo's the man.
Hembo is the man. That's awesome. Well, Dan, we appreciate it. We know you're busy. You got the new NFL Live gig coming up. Congrats on that. We can't wait to watch you. And thanks for spending some time with us talking some ball.
And Dan, maybe you can't comment on this, but I personally can. I hope to see you on Monday Night Football as well. You're my guy for that. So you don't comment, don't get yourself in trouble, but I hope to see that.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I appreciate that. I share the same sentiments.
There you go. All right, Dan Orlovsky. Dan, thanks again, man. Have a good one. Stay safe, and hope to do it again soon. All right, yep, that's Dan Orlovsky. Once again, that was Dan Orlovsky, former NFL quarterback and current NFL analyst for ESPN. Kind enough to call in, Joe, our first interview over the phone, and he was awesome. Great to get his insight. We love watching him on Get Up when he breaks stuff down on the prompter and stuff. He's awesome at that. But I was really interested to get his thoughts on the no preseason games with that news dropping just the other day. And we kind of figure it would have an effect on players, but I thought he brought up a great point about just the effect it has on guys. You know, when we talk about the 52 and 53-man guys that make the roster, I mean, this is a chance for those guys to make their case for themselves, for all those quarterbacks to get those reps. And you feel for rookies like Joe Burrow and Tua and Justin Herbert who can't get those reps, and guys who are coming into new teams, new situations. Teddy Bridgewater, Tom Brady maybe doesn't need as many reps as some of the other guys, but new team, new situation. And it's great to hear from his insight being a former quarterback. And like he said, when he drops back, you got 2 seconds of organized chaos going on. And to be able to not get that timing and rhythm down, I think it was a great point. And I agree that the preseason should stay. Whether it's 2 games or 4 games is up for discussion.
Me personally, I subscribe to the line of thinking that it should be 2 games and then joint practices. Over the last 3-4 years, the joint practices have become a lot more popular, where you've got teams who are just coming together for a week of camp. The Texans have done it. The Raiders have done it. Patriots do it almost every year now. We almost see it. It's starting to become a staple of what we see every year on Hard Knocks. We look forward to that episode where there's the crossover team. And it gives teams a chance to have more meaningful practice reps, because in practice, when you're going up against the same opponents every single day, you get to know their tendencies, and you could cheat a little bit. Maybe you don't do it on purpose, but mentally, J.J. Watt could say, all right, well, Laramie Tunsil, I know that he likes to take a quick little hesitant step to his left, and I can cheat and go inside on him. Well, that's taken out of the equation when you're having practice reps going up against, say, a different team, say the Browns, and now you're working against someone new or whatever the case may be. You get more valuable practice reps. So I'm in line with joint practices and 2 preseason games. But I agree with what he said about and what you're saying. The back half of the roster, we are going to see some bad football the first month of the season.
Definitely.
And just think about the guys who have been key parts of their team, who won their job or lost their job in week 4 of the preseason. The couple that come to mind, because they relate to my Jets, and I was at these games, or at one of them and watched the other one on TV. I was at the game where Victor Cruz had the 3 touchdowns, and the Giants said he was going to get cut if he didn't have that game. Goes on to be great for them, scores touchdown in the Super Bowl, helps them win a Super Bowl, key player for that franchise over the next few years. On the flip side of that, for the Jets, Danny Woodhead got cut after a 4th preseason game and became a key player for the Chargers and the Patriots. In that 4th preseason game, he struggled. David Clowney, a receiver you've probably never heard of, never amounted to anything. He never amounted to anything. He won the job in that 4th preseason game. And Danny Woodhead got cut, went elsewhere, had success. Those preseason games are so important for the back half of the roster. I'm very curious to see. There's going to be a lot of talent that falls through the cracks after the big wave of cuts from 80 down to 53. There's going to be a big glut of talent available, of guys who have the talent, have the ability, but just didn't show enough because there weren't preseason games. You can only do so much in practice. You could only do so much going up against the same guys. Victor Cruz might have struggled going up against, I guess they had Aaron Ross at that time and stuff. The Giants, he might have struggled going up against some guys like that in practice, but he came out and torched the Jets. So you're going to have a lot of guys who are maybe struggling to show out in practice because you're going up against good competition, but maybe they would have thrived in a preseason game against someone else. I feel bad for a team like whoever's the back end of the roster, guys on the Browns for the offensive line. They got to go up against Myles Garrett all the time. They got to go up against all this talent on the defensive front. And you take a look at Arizona. You've got DeAndre Hopkins, Larry Fitzgerald. You got a ton of receiver talent there. So you're going to get torched a lot in practice, and you're going to look bad, but maybe you would have shut down whoever you went up against in the preseason game against the Broncos. So it's going to make for a lot of shuffling and talent available early on in the season. But that's why, like you said, the preseason will come back, whether it's 4, whether it's 2, you need it. It's so important to shake the rust and for these players to make their case.
Dak Prescott and Russell Wilson have the preseason to thank for giving them their jobs. Tony Romo and Matt Flynn are out of the league because of the preseason, so it's where jobs are won and lost for sure. I loved, too, the conversation about Tiger. Yes. Thankfully, I was watching the episode of Get Up that day when they were talking about the memorial. They were talking about Tiger, and Dan said, Tiger's my favorite athlete of all time, but I don't expect him to win this week. And I was like, wow, Dan's favorite athlete of all time. And just to hear him talk about when you get to be a professional athlete, you got to work hard. When we talked to DeMatha head coach Mike Jones, he said, guys that reach that level, there's no substitute for hard work. And he says, you learn to enjoy the grind and wanting to beat people and not just barely get by, but just stomp them into the ground.
It's like when he was saying all that, it was reminding me
of
to
make you run through a wall. It was awesome.
That part of that, but it was reminding me of The Last Dance and Michael Jordan. Like, there's very few people who have that mentality. R.I.P. Kobe Bryant had it.
Yep.
But
Brady has it.
But Tiger Woods, that when he started explaining it, I was like, you know what? Tiger's a lot of people's favorite because of the success.
Athletes respect that. When guys have that killer instinct, that's something that they relate to and they appreciate because they know how much effort and sweat, blood, and tears that guy had to put into that. And he's right with golf. I mean, walking 18 holes, especially in 90, 95, 100-degree weather is not an ezy thing, let alone when millions and millions of people are watching you at home.
Millions of dollars are on the line, like he said.
Exactly. And I thought that was really, really great conversation.
Now, his guy Tiger, though, that takes us to our next topic of conversation, didn't have the hottest week in his return to the tour this past week.
No, he did not. He missed out on the cut. I was watching on Thursday, first hole, comes out of the gate, makes birdie, and I'm like, oh, baby, here we go. And scores at Memorial this past week.
Oh, my goodness.
The conditions, Jack Nicklaus said that was as brutal as he's ever seen it. The greens were just so firm and fast. It was windy for most of the week. The pin locations were brutal. So Tiger got off to a nice little start Thursday, but, you know.
And we were curious to see how the course played, being there back-to-back weeks. Could not have played more differently because of the conditions as well.
No question. And Tiger definitely was a victim of that. Actually, I said he missed the cut. He actually made it right on the number.
Barely,
+3, got into the weekend, didn't do much. It was good to see him back. He's not playing this week at the 3M Open. Not a great field. You got a WGC coming up next week where all the big stars come in. Dustin Johnson, Brooks Koepka, Tony.
I was surprised to see Brooks Koepka on this week's list.
Yeah,
because this past week he had been complaining that his knee, ever since the 2019 surgery, hasn't been right. I thought that might have been a hint at I'm going to start taking certain events off and playing the bigger ones until he can get it fixed. But I mean, more power to him if he wants to power through it. I thought this was going to be one of the ones where he just sat it out and got ready for next week. I was very surprised to see his name on the list.
I was too. But yeah, him and DJ are by far the biggest headliners. Tommy Fleetwood, Tony Finau, some other notables in the field. Joe, we both had guys that made the cut last week.
Mine a lot better than yours.
No, Schauffele actually did better than Thomas.
I would say early on, Schauffele, by some miracle, made that
horrendous. He was 8 over at one point in the first round. Thankfully, made the cut, and he finished higher than Justin Thomas. Tied for 13th with 1 over, which gives an idea.
He still did have the high water mark of the weekend at one point on Friday.
No, it's not where you start; it's where you finish.
Hey, I understand that, PJ.
I mean, come on now.
I understand that. But at one point on Saturday, he was at 5th on the leaderboard. I was feeling good. And then he just –
I know.
His back nine on Saturday, oof. That was one of the worst. He had 2 doubles, 2 singles. He did have 2 birdies to counteract the 2 single bogeys. But the 2 doubles, oh, man, he just completely fell apart in the second half of Saturday.
On the PGA Tour, it seems like we get accustomed to guys shooting 20 under every week, and you look at it and you're like, man, I want to go to the range, hit some balls. Yeah. Watching Memorial this week, Joe, I did not want to go to the range. No. Watching all these pros double bogey and triple bogey in holes. With that being said, who do you have this week in Minneapolis?
I'll probably go this week with I was between 2 guys, and it was a bit of a challenge to pick between the 2. You made fun of me the last couple of weeks for going chalk with JT and whatnot. And look, you call it chalk, but I don't really consider it quote unquote chalk unless it's like DeChambeau was a few weeks ago where he was plus 350. Quote unquote chalk that you were getting on my case for was still 15-1 for JT last week, which is good value. Like I said, between 2 guys this week, it was Tony Finau and Matt Wolff. Finau, he just can't get over the hump. He can't put together 4 good rounds. He's been one of the most consistent golfers on tour of late. but just can't put it all together and
One
get
win
the
show
W.
for it. Yeah,
Exactly. I almost feel bad for him. And you look at him to break the curse. You look at a week like this where it's not the most stellar of fields. A lot of guys are taking the week off. So maybe it's his week this week. The other guy I'm looking at is Matt Wolff. Came really close at the Rocket Mortgage this year, put up a really great weekend. He won here last year, a chance to repeat, so he's comfortable with the course. I always like to look at that. You know, we've done it every week. We always look to see the last couple of years, who's like this course, who's confident here.
Have to.
That's a big time factor when it comes to making a pick. And he won it here last year. He's looked good. So between the two, it's tough. For that reason, I'm going to have to go with Wolff. I sound like I'm on Shark Tank here, and for that reason, I'm out. For that reason, I'm going to go with Matt Wolff this week. Playing really well right now. Won here last year. From a value standpoint, also makes more sense there. Wolff is plus 2,400. Finau is plus 1,400. So you get a lot of extra value on Wolff. Honestly, the value is what made the tiebreaker for me. I look at Finau and Wolff as two guys who I could have really gone either way this week, but because I'm getting Wolff at 24-1 versus Finau at 14-1, and it was splitting hairs between my pick, I go with Wolff for that main reason. Then in the end, just the value, considering how well he's been playing and how he won here last year.
I like Wolff. I took him in my DraftKings lineup. This week, I don't really like anybody, honestly. You know, the big guns, Koepka and DJ, I just don't love them here this week.
Yeah, like I said, Koepka probably should have taken the week off. It might have been the sensible thing to do with his knee.
So I'm either leaning towards Paul Casey or Eric Van Rooyen, two guys that are good with their irons. Van Rooyen made the cut last week at Memorial. Casey was +4, so he just missed out on the cut. But this course fits Casey, a good iron player. You know, nowadays on the PGA Tour, there's so many courses where guys can just drive it a mile and you can overpower a golf course. TPC, Minnesota, or wherever they're playing the 3M, you can't do that. And I just think Casey, it fits his game this week, so I would lead him. I like Van Rooyen a lot as well. So we'll see what happens. But again, just not a great feel on this week. But if I had to play, it would be those two guys. Something else, Joe, that really didn't have a great feel on this
only
week
two options.
Was where would you go, Joe? July 23rd, it was a bunch of Tour de France and Open Championships in golf and, you know, some baseball. There were two that really caught my eye. So just two choices for you this week. But it's really just to talk about one thing.
Yeah.
And the two choices are John Daly wins an Open Championship in 1995, but it's at St. Andrews. So you get to see those luxurious pants and that outfit that Daly always sports at the birthplace of golf. And then answer choice B, July 23rd, Mark Burley completes his 18th perfect game. And Dwayne Wise, of course, making that catch in the ninth inning. What a great call by Hawk Harrelson. Alexi Ramirez at shortstop. Alexis getting ready to throw it over to first. That was awesome stuff. There was a run there where pitchers had, you know, perfect games. It was Burley,
Dallas Braden,
Halliday, Dallas Braden, Philip Umber got it a couple of years later. When it was almost like the Triple Crown, right? Like guys got it, and there was this huge layoff. There was this huge layoff for perfect games, and then Burley broke through and got his, and it was pretty incredible. The stat I will always remember for that game, which just blows my mind, is that Burley spent 32 minutes on the mound that day. 32 minutes. I mean, guys spend that in an inning sometimes. And he spent that over 9 innings, 32 minutes of actual time on the mound, and it's an incredible.
And one of the stories first of all, spoiler alert, that's my pick. It's
St. Andrews is great, but
St. Andrews is great. John Daly is a hell of a character in and of himself, so there is some allure to that one. But the pick is Burley. There's a very, very minimal amount of perfect games in the history of the thousands of MLB games that have been played. So if I've got the guarantee to be at one, I'm taking that. But the thing that sticks out to me from this game, and it was, I forgot if it was an MLB Network documentary or an ESPN feature. Sorry to credit it to the wrong person, so I won't credit it at all. It was a feature about perfect games. And they're just so random, man. I mean, you look at the great players in history who who haven't even come close. And then look at the names we just mentioned: Mark Burley, Dallas Braden, Phil Umber. I mean, are you kidding me? But
Right.
Burley, he said that he didn't feel like he had his stuff in the bullpen that day in his bullpen session before the game started.
No.
And then he comes out and throws a perfect game. So perfect games are incredible. That Dwayne Wise catch, remarkable. And then, like you said, the call with Alexi Ramirez. I guess you wouldn't have heard the call because we would have been there, but perfect game. You picked the perfect game 10 times.
No question.
Come on.
Dan Orlovsky got his trivia question, the fourth guest.
Maybe some good juju for us.
There you go. Tied it up at 2 last week. So would you like me to go first this week?
I've been picking the last couple of weeks because I took that lead. I'll let you pick this week. Who would you like to go first?
You can go first if you want. I'll give my question to you first.
Okay.
Okay. I like my question for you this week because you can use some logical thinking around it, but it's kind of tough. So we'll see.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you for that.
90 seconds as always, 3 strikes. Joe Malfa, your question for this week. Who are the 3 NFL teams who went winless in divisional games last season? So 0-6.
3 NFL teams.
3 NFL teams that went 0-6.
Winless.
Correct. All right, and your time starts now.
Okay, so right off the bat, the bad teams last season were the Bengals, the Dolphins. The Bengals, though, I do believe had a division win against the Browns. The Dolphins, I know, had a division win.
Who was that against? You're 20
see.
seconds.
All right. I've got time.
Yeah, plenty of time.
The Broncos had to have won a game. The Raiders stunk last year, but I know that the Raiders? Wait, maybe they didn't.
No, not the Raiders.
Okay.
1 strike.
Okay. The Cardinals weren't good.
45 seconds, halfway through.
All right. The Colts weren't very good, but they have a bad division. The Buccaneers were 500. They had to have won a game in division against the Falcons or something at some point. Oh, wait, no, they also beat the Saints last year. What am I saying? I'll say the Cardinals.
Not the Cardinals. 2 strikes, 20 seconds left.
Jeez. This is tough, man. I'll say the Bengals.
Not the Bengals.
Yeah, I should have gone. Oh my God, I know they beat the I think at the Browns at some point. All right, that was.
So it was 2, 3, and 6 in the draft order. It was Washington, Detroit, and then the tough one I didn't know if you would get was the Chargers.
That was what I think the first question that so one of us has just gotten completely over on.
Yeah.
I would not have gotten. I'm not mad that I went over because I definitely wouldn't have gotten the Chargers.
That was tough. I thought you were Washington or Detroit.
See, as I was going through the teams in my mind, I thought Washington beat the Giants, but now that you mention it, that was the game that went to overtime, and the Giants won it.
And Chase Young.
Yep, and that's the game that they got Chase Young.
That's exactly
so now, that was it.
So, like a little different question, maybe a little hard side, but
okay. All right, mine for you. I go baseball.
Yep.
Big baseball preview we just had earlier.
Love
I said that Jacob deGrom is going to three-peat as the Cy Young Award winner. So I went back through a little history here.
Yep.
A three-peat for the award has only ever happened twice. Actually, while I have it up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. There are only 10 people who even have 3. And then among the 10 that even have 3, there have only been 2 three-peats. I want you to give me the 2 people who have a three-peat and 1 additional guy who has more than 3 for his career. So you're giving me 3 players. Gotcha. 2 of the guys who have a three-peat and 1 additional guy who has more than 3 in his career. I didn't add that last part in until I heard your question. Your question was initially just the 2 guys who have a three-peat. But after that you just pulled, I also want 1 more who has more than 3 in his career because there are only 4 guys who have more than 3 in their career. So
all right.
Let me get.
I'm ready whenever you are. Well, I know Clemens is the one with more than 3. So I don't know if he's 3 in a row though.
Okay, your time starts now.
Okay. Does Clemens have 3 in a row?
I'm not. I want you to get the three-peats first, and then 1 additional guy who has.
Smart of you.
Yes.
All right. Let's see. So Clemens, Randy Johnson, Nolan Ryan, Kershaw, Tim Lincecum was really good for those couple of years. Pedro. I got a funny feeling it's Tim Lincecum. Is that one?
Tim Lincecum is not one of them. He does not have 3. He only had the 2 back-to-backs. Strike 1.
See, I did not know if he had 3. Okay. Yeah, I don't think it's Randy Johnson.
Randy Johnson is one of the 3-peats.
Okay. And then I don't think it's Pedro. Oof.
36 seconds left.
Don't think it's Clemens either. But I'll go Clemens.
Clemens, I'll give him to you as your additional guy, but he is not a 3-peat guy. So you got 25 seconds to give me the last 3-peat. So you do have 2 strikes, though. I'm counting Clemens as a strike because towards the 3-peat part, he did not.
True.
So I'm counting it as 2 strikes.
That's fair. So I got 1 strike left. I'm either going Pedro, Koufax, or
You got 10 seconds to pick which one you want.
maybe Dwight Gooden. I'll go Koufax.
It is not Sandy Koufax. He had 1963, 1965, 1966.
Oh.
He missed 1964. The other one, you actually never mentioned him at all. And not only did he 3-peat, he 4-peated Greg Maddux, 92, 93, 94, and 95. And another nugget that I didn't realize until I researched this question, you brought up Nolan Ryan. Nolan Ryan actually
doesn't have a Cy Young, right?
Never won a Cy Young.
I actually didn't know that, which is why I was hesitant. But Maddox won 4 in a row. Eventually, I would have gotten to him, but he wasn't on my mind of like guys floating.
Yeah, there have only been 2 guys who have 3-peated, like I said, and both of those actually were 4-peats. Johnson went 99, 2000, 01, 02. Maddux 92, 93, 94, 95. Plenty of guys have come close. Kershaw went 11, 13, 14. Koufax, like you had mentioned, 63, 65, 66. Even your boy Max Scherzer. Max Scherzer went back-to-back, but he had 2 gap years. So a lot of guys who were close. Even Pedro that you mentioned, 97, 99, 2000, missed 98. So there was a lot of close ones.
I was right there. I was swimming in the waters, but I couldn't
yeah, I mean, and I was one of your O's, Jim Palmer, 73, 75, 76. I was very surprised by how many near 3-peats there were.
Yes.
And the fact that, again, there's only 2, and they were both 4-peats. So my
good.
pick from earlier in the
baseball well done.
DeGrom.
How about that? Have we ever had a week where the guest got one, but neither of us got one? It's happened 4 times, so I'm sure it happened maybe once or twice.
Probably.
That was good by Orlovsky. He got those 2 quick strikes.
Right at the end.
No, but
he did. See, he did what Joe Beninati, I hate to put him on the spot, failed to do. Joe got 2 quick strikes, but he kept powering through. Dan played the game right. As soon as he got 2 strikes, he took his time like a guy who was ready to tap in a putt for birdie to win the Masters, surveyed the field, and he got it done.
Tiger right there.
Got it done. He didn't run out the back of the end zone on it.
No. Well done. He did not. Well, yeah, big thanks to Dan. We know how busy he is, for able to call in, give us some great insight. And Joe, this is the last episode we'll have to do without live baseball.
Yes, and it's the last one in the
that counts.
Well, yes, and the last one in the single digits too. Next one, episode 10.
But
the next one, like you said, we'll have baseball that counts.
Yeah.
We already have NBA ongoing, but also scrimmages.
Yep.
So not episode 10, but episode 11. We will have baseball that counts, hockey that counts, and basketball that counts.
Come on. And the golf just keeps getting better. Yes. We got major championships approaching, Joe.
Yes.
Oh, it's beautiful.
August is going to be incredible.
Going to be great. Well, as always, for my guy Joe Malfa, I'm PJ Glasser. Thanks again to Dan Orlovsky, and we'll see you for episode 10.